I realized that I was having hearing problems at school. I was okay person to person, but when I was in a group, it was difficult. And we had a hearing test, and they did tell me that there was something wrong with my hearing. But I wasn't diagnosed until I had 2 children, when my hearing got really bad, and I was told that I had otosclerosis. I had a stapedectomy in the 1970s, and it was absolutely brilliant. For a fortnight, I heard really well, and then after I woke up one morning, it was all gone. And unfortunately, that my hearing just got worse and worse. After my husband died, it was very difficult for me because I couldn't hear the doorbell or the telephone. So somebody suggested that I might go to see if I could have a cochlear implant. And I did come, that was about 12 years ago, and had the test, and they said, yes, you could have a cochlear implant. But I was a bit hesitant because I felt I could manage reasonably well with my hearing aids, and I was also worried that it was going to affect my balance, and that would then I wouldn't be able to drive, which would take away my independence. I then got a hearing dog, and she was a great help, of course, but my hearing kept on deteriorating. So about 2 years ago, I decided I better start looking into the cochlear implant again. And I did have the operation a year ago in August. No problems with the operation, but the worst thing was that because you couldn't use any hearing aids or anything before it had healed up, it meant that they were totally deaf for 6 weeks, which was very difficult. And then I was asked to come for my tuning in, which was very, very emotional. First, I could hear lots of bleeps, and then the audiologist said to me, now we're going to see if what you can hear. So silence, and then I heard this voice saying, can you hear me? And it was such a shock. I turned to her and said, did you just say, can you hear me? And she said, yes. And I started to cry because to hear a voice completely, it was so fantastic. My daughter, who was with me, she was photographing me at the time on her phone, and she started crying, and even audiologist had tears in her eyes. I drove home after the tuning in, and the first thing I noticed was this tick, 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 tick. And I said to my daughter, what is that? And she said, Mum, it's the indicator in the car. And that was fantastic. I hadn't heard that for 30 odd years. The next thing, when I came home, that I could hear, again I hadn't heard for over 30 years, was the clock ticking, a pendulum clock. And it was, I can't tell you, it was so fantastic. And then, of course, I heard all sorts of different things. Some things that I couldn't work out what they were. And because of living on my own, it was very difficult because I couldn't ask somebody, what is that noise? I had to find it out for myself. But it was like a voyage of discovery. Every single day, more noise. And now, after 1 year of the tuning in, I can now hear things that hearing people would take for granted. I can get up in the morning to let my dog out, and I hear the birds singing in the garden. I can't hear individual birds, but I can hear the songs they all make, which is lovely. I can even hear my hearing dog's claws clip, clip, clip on the kitchen floor, which really doesn't matter to hearing people. But for me, it is just a proof again that my hearing is so fantastic. Every single time I have gone for tuning in, more sounds come, and now I have had it for a year, and that is the last tuning in for another year, and yet again there are more and more sounds. It is absolutely magic. I sometimes think I wish I had it done years before, but technology is so fantastic now, and the Implant Center, I can't tell you how wonderful they are and how helpful. And, well, all I can say, it is magic.